Hello. This is Cassidy Gruber Ruth, class of 2019.
And this is Lily King, also class of 2019. And welcome to this week's SGA recap of the SGA meeting that was held on Sunday, November 22nd.
So first off, there was a representative council vote on the ratification of the Seven Sisters Constitution, which you can find by Googling the Seven Sisters Constitution, to reform the coordinating board of the Seven Sisters student governments to better facilitate conversations between the colleges, on whether or not Bryn Mawr will send delegates to the coordinating board, and for those delegates to be the current Seven Sisters representatives, who are Elizabeth Vandenberg and Emily Spiegel, and to create a temporary committee that will plan the next Seven Sisters conference, which will be hosted at Bryn Mawr next year. The representative council voted yes on all of these issues.
During the meeting, they also had a follow-up conversation about the posters and the events of the past couple weeks. In order to provide context for the recently published list of demands, the BMC Coalition talked about the history of race relations at Bryn Mawr. This updated list of demands, which can be found by searching for diversity concerns on Moodle, by following the navigation path, My Home, to courses, to organizations to diversity concerns on Moodle, or by going through the link Ruth Lindenberg recently sent out in an email.
And so the BMC also talked about a little bit of the history of Bryn Mawr. So first, they talked about how in 1916, M. Carey Thomas gave a speech where she said that the supremacy of the white race is jeopardized by admitting and teaching students of color at Bryn Mawr. And as a basis for admission, she would also ask people where they came from and where their parents came from.
In 1954, a black woman came to Bryn Mawr with the hope that she would get a valuable education. She ended up being denied access to certain spaces and was not treated equally.
In 1988, a Latina student named Christine Rivera received racist notes slipped under her door and was the victim of a lot of racist actions. In response, the administration issued a memo that said, "We want to make it very clear that prejudice, harassment, and discrimination will not be tolerated in the bi-college community. They represent the antithesis of the values essential to our basic mission, pursuit of knowledge in a free and open atmosphere where differences of opinion, background, and belief are valued and respected. Until everyone in our colleges, students, faculty, and staff, is free from harassment and discrimination here, we have failed to live up on our principles." Danielle Rooms then said that despite the administration's swift response to these acts of racism in 1988, they were not so quick to condemn similar actions that happened over Yik Yak these past few weeks.
The BMC Coalition then stated their mission, which is, quote, to empower students to create long-lasting institutional change through collaborative partnerships and accountability among administration, faculty, staff, and students. We are a coalition whose aim is to make Bryn Mawr and its resources adequate and accessible to all students, unquote. They also said that SGA meetings are a time for open dialogue where a person in any capacity, representative or otherwise, can engage in productive conversation.
So there was also conversation about the recent comments that were made on Yik Yak, which told Bryn Mawr students of color that their concerns were not valid and did not really matter.
Danielle Rooms said admitting a diverse group of students cannot be where the college stops. It must make every effort to create a space where everyone admitted can access the same resources and have a safe place to live. Furthermore, the same demands that were made in 1988 are being made now in 2015, revealing a lack of change. The coalition's aim is to make these conversations a constant part of the college and to go further, to move past words and into action. Black at Bryn Mawr has a fantastic post titled Institutional Attempts at Interracial Understanding and Change, which provides a more in-depth history and can be accessed through the link at the bottom of the screen.
Kitty SGA then reminded us that the past few weeks have been very heavy, and we need to give each other time to process this and think about what we want to articulate. We cannot always create a safe space in discussions like this, but we can create a brave space. So during this conversation, there was also a Q&A segment. So the first question was, who can join the BMC Coalition?
And the answer is anyone can join the BMC Coalition. It's not just for low-income students or students from affinity groups. Change requires everyone, and thus everyone is welcome. The Coalition holds weekly meetings in the Enid Cook Center on Wednesday nights at 8:30 p.m. Additionally, the organization will be comprised of a general body and a concentrated groups of students who do the heavy lifting. But in that concentrated group, the coalition wants each person to represent a different area of the Bryn Mawr community. The goal is a true representation of everyone's interests. Another question people had was, the original list of demands had some valid points that weren't included in the updated list of demands. What spurred the edited version of the demands?
And so the answer to this was that, first, the coalition is working on archiving everything they do and have offered to put the original list of demands back up on the coalition Facebook page. But in general, these demands are going to continue to grow and evolve, so changing them again is also an option and might potentially happen. They were largely shortened to make them more concise. Additionally, some part of the original list of demands were a little jarring, and the coalition wanted to make sure it was sending the right message. But if you have any email suggestions, please email them at bmccoalition@gmail.com.
So about the yaks, one of the biggest controversies is about holding people accountable on Yik Yak if they don't voluntarily identify themselves. So even though the Honor Code expressly forbids hateful or discriminatory language, a judge's order is necessary for a warrant that would identify the person who posted the yak. So one can only obtain a judge's order if there is a physical threat. Thus, the Honor Board is unable to bring these cases to a hearing.
And if you want more information on these Yik Yaks, information about them and personal stories can be found in the meeting minutes, which are sent to every student at Bryn Mawr by Angela Mote, who is the secretary. So they also talked about how they can better use SGA. The BMC Coalition talked about this, and they said that coming to SGA meetings is a great way to voice your opinions through announcements or your 2 cents when anyone in the community can get up and say something. Another great thing is talking to your representatives in the SGA, which are members at large and dorm presidents, who can also voice your concerns and have the power to vote on them. Additionally, President Charlie Bruce has monthly meetings with President Kim Cassidy and Dean Balthazar, and functions as an advocate for students at those meetings. So if you have anything you would like Charlie to bring up, please email them at cebruce@brynmawr.edu.
Lastly, one of the most important things is continuing this conversation in the coming years to make sure that we experience lasting change. The 3 big things with this are mentoring young leaders, working on institutional memory, and getting faculty members on board, which are all things that the BMC Coalition is working on right now. For the full transcript of what was discussed, we highly recommend that you read the meeting minutes, which can be found on the SGA blog and in the future in the SGA archives. Additional topics included the uncertain future of Black at Bryn Mawr and more personal stories about individual experiences at Bryn Mawr. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.